So the question is, where are we right now in as far as all of our compositions, our papers for English 151? Well, right now we're at the point, we're almost midway, but we have completed the expository paper. We have completed voice 1. Okay, so I have some things that I need to share with you about both those papers in order for you to go back and properly format those papers. And then also some very special considerations about APA and the issue with plagiarism. What are the major findings in all of your papers so far? In your voice papers, I still find that people are still submitting their voice papers. I think I've had a handful, about 6, and all of these voice papers were all formatted in APA. Remember, the voice papers are submitted in MLA only, not APA. The next thing is use APA in-text citation for online sources. Some papers have historical data and other details that still need to be cited. Next, I did want to point out that last Friday I had told everybody February 25th was the last day for any outstanding expository and voice 1 essays. And if I didn't receive it by then, you are being awarded a 0 grade. So if you have questions about that, send me an email. For persuasive essay, you will be required to use an online plagiarism checker. The examples are Grammarly or QText, and you will edit your plagiarism errors and then turn in your paper after you've corrected those errors. As a general review, I did want to point out again, in a very general sense, what are the things that have to be followed and as far as APA and in as far as your complete or overall paper. 1, font has to be Times New Roman size 12. 2, everything has to be double spaced, 1-inch margins all around. The heading you will see in the sample paper, and I'll discuss that heading as we look at the sample paper in the next slide. Page numbers. Now, how do we do pagination? Each page is numbered in the top right hand corner, and you do not include your last name. Remember, the last name in the pagination is only for MLA. When you do APA, you do not put your last name. Title, see the sample paper for placement, and it must be centered, bolded, and very, very important, in sentence case. On this slide, what we have here is visually examples of what your cover page should look like in APA, and then maybe a text page, and then finally your references page. So let's take a look at that cover page. What goes on the cover page? There is just one error, and I'll point it out as we go over the cover page elements. So the very first thing is upper right-hand corner, inserted right inside the header, should be the page number. And remember, it's just the number, no last name. Okay, and this starts on the cover page. Then you go down about 4 spaces, and you have the title. The title has to be in title case, centered and bolded. And then below that will be your name. And then what's missing on this particular example is right after your name should also be the name of the college. So that would be American Samoa Community College. And then what you see on the page is the course number. After the course number, it's the professor. And lastly, the date that the paper is turned in. So that kind of visually just gives you a sense of exactly the spacing, the wording, the font size for your cover page. Right after your cover page is going to be the first page of your essay. And if you see, the pagination is right there at the top right-hand corner. Your title has to be centered right at the top, bolded in title case. No italics, no underline, nothing else, just very simple. And then it's followed by the text of your paper. And then we come to what would be the very last page, which is going to be your reference page. And again, if you look at pagination, it's right there, upper right-hand corner. And then the title of this page will actually just be the word references. The word references has to be bolded and centered. And then right below that will be all of your sources. And as you can see, all of the sources are in hanging indent and also in alphabetical order. So visually, if your paper doesn't look like this, then it is not APA. You are not doing it correctly. So I hope that that is helpful. So now we are going to review in-text citation, and remember we've had a whole tutorial about this. We know that there are two kinds. We know there's parenthetical and narrative in-text. So we're going to review that again, and then we're also going to review what the references page needs to look like. Okay, so what is parenthetical and narrative in-text citation? And remember, it's called parenthetical because it's enclosed. This citation is enclosed in parentheses. Okay, so in the APA style, referring to the works of others in your text or in the actual body of your essay is done using parenthetical and narrative citations, and every single one of you should already know what that means. This method involves providing relevant source information in parentheses whenever you use a direct quotation or whenever you paraphrase information. That means ideas from sources from another online or any other source. Okay? Now remember, whenever you are using a direct quote or you're summarizing or paraphrasing something that you got from your source in your own words, you need to do parenthetical citations. Now for a direct quote, you need to make sure you put the direct quote in quotation marks, open parentheses, and then put the author's last name, comma, the date, comma, and then the page number, and then close the parentheses and make sure that the period is outside the closed parentheses. Okay, that's for a direct quote. Now, if you're trying to put that information in your own words, same thing. At the very end of your paraphrase or your summary, you need to put your citation. And then again, that's going to be an open parentheses, the author's last name, comma, and then the date, and then close parentheses, and the period is at the end. So you notice if you're putting it in your own words, you don't need to put down a page number or a paragraph number. You just need to put down the author, comma, and the date, and that's it. Now I hope you can tell me how narrative in-text citation is different from parenthetical. Who can tell me that? How is narrative not the same? Okay, of course we know that when it's narrative, you're breaking apart the author and the date and the page number. Okay, and that's the example right there. If you are taking that information and starting your in-text citation with the author's name, you put the author's last name, you enclose the date of publication in parentheses. For example here, Tally explains that. So you have the author explaining something, or you could say, according to Tally, same thing. And then you have your direct quote, and then at the end, you have the page number. And again, the period is outside of the last parentheses. Okay? So that's how narrative is different. Narrative is not putting everything at the end. Narrative is actually using the author's name to start your in-text citation and then closing it with the page number. Now remember, if you don't have a page number, you can use the paragraph number, and that would be open parentheses, P-A-R-A, period, and then put the number of the parentheses, close the parentheses, and then the period at the end. Lastly, we come to your references page. Now what is that? Now, everything is not complete. You can't avoid plagiarism if you don't also provide a references page for APA papers. So this title will be on a separate page at the end of your paper. The heading references should be centered and bolded at the top of the page. Again, no underline, no all caps, no italicized or quotation marks. Very simple. Just like the example right there on this particular slide. Do not use quotation marks, italics, or underline for this heading. On this page, you can see an example of one source. Okay, the reason I use this one is because I'm going to assume that most of your sources are going to be online. So if you look at this, it's the author first. You see the last name, comma, first initial, period. After the author, you put the date in parentheses. Now, not all dates will also have the month, but you definitely have to put the year in parentheses and then period. And then the title of the actual online article needs to be in italics. You see the italicized all the way. Now, whatever it says, you do it exactly as is. And then period. Then you see the IEPA period. Now, that's the title of the website. The website goes next, and then the very last thing is the URL. That's all you do for each of your sources. Okay, I'm going to repeat that one more time. And I want you to go out and practice with each of your sources. Remember, it's the author, comma, first initial, period. And then you have the date in parentheses, period. Then you have the title of the article in italics, period. And then the website, period, and URL. So just 4 pieces of information, if you can remember it that way. So make sure that all of your sources on your references page are all formatted exactly like that. Okay, this is the end of our slideshow. Thank you.